Hey guys, this is Ty the dog trainer with dogbehaviouronline.com, and I'm coming with another question from one of our customers. It says, I'm looking for some personalized advice from Ty about one of my dogs. Overall, everything's going great and I'm making great strides with the basic obedience using Ty's methods in the DVDs. I have a 4-year-old Amstaff mix named Lucy who is obedient about 65-70% of the time. When she's not is when she gets in trouble with other dogs. I've done a lot of reading and research on aggressive behavior, and I stumbled across Ty by accident while reading a rescue blog. I'm so glad that I did because the way he teaches is exactly what I was looking for. I have some experience training as I trained my now 14-year-old yellow lab to do some competitive obedience when I was a teenager. He was a breeze to train because he was willing to learn and eager to please. Lucy is absolutely the love of my life, but she is stubborn and has a mind of her own. She isn't a terrible aggression case, but she gets snippy from time to time when around new dogs, especially if those dogs are acting out. For example, another dog excitedly tries to get to us while passing by on a walk. I'm tired of being embarrassed by her occasional outbursts, so I've been scouring the internet and books for a solution. Already things in the videos are working to get her much more consistently listening to me. We have a long road of practice ahead, but her heel command has already come a long way. What I wanted to ask Ty about is more specific to Lucy's personality. I rescued her at about a year old. She came from an inner city shelter and was clearly not taken care of before I got her. She seems to have been beaten at some point. She's naturally fearful and is specifically very fearful of objects touching her. If you approach her with anything in your hand, she jumps away or cowers. I have never in the 3 years I've owned her hit her with any object. She came to me with this behavior already ingrained in her. She's also suspicious of unknown things. For example, it was my husband's birthday recently and I brought in a bunch of helium balloons and she's terrified of them. She'll coexist with them when they're up by the ceiling standing still, but if I move them she runs away and hides. I can coax her out and make her lay near me while I hold them near her, but she's clearly terrified the whole time. In the past, I've tried to work on this issue, but the training methods I came across were very treat-based, and it frankly just hasn't worked at all. For example, she's very afraid of being touched by a frisbee, and the manuals I was using say bring the frisbee close to her and give her a million treats while slowly moving it closer. It does little to nothing for her. She remains just as afraid no matter how many treats I give her in the presence of a frisbee. I did this exercise many times with little improvement. She will pick up the frisbee and play with it on her own, but if I hold it and bring it near her, she's very afraid. This suspicious attitude also comes across when we're training. I've done lots and lots of crazy man method with her. For those that are curious, that's a method that I teach in my videos. And overall has tremendously improved her heel command. When there are little or minimal distractions, she's basically 100% at my side now. And when there are distractions, she's about 60 to 70% obedient. This is a big step for us, and it's improving every time. What I'm still struggling with is how hard it is to get her to be eager about listening. My other dog, who I'm also using Ty's methods on, is naturally extremely eager to please. This method has worked wonders on him, and he heels like a champion no matter what now. It's really fun to walk with him because he is absolutely in sync with what I want from him. He would also sit or lay down on hot coals if I asked him to. He has that trainability factor. Lucy, on the other hand, is reluctant and stubborn. When doing the crazy man, she tends to hang back a little bit and isn't snappy about changing directions. She does it, but it isn't eagerly. She's the kind of dog that when I ask her to sit and the ground is wet or cold, she half sits and hovers above it. She's very stubborn. Basically, my two questions are, what is your suggested approach to her fearful behaviors, number one, and number two, how do I make her more eager to learn without treating her to death? I really, really appreciate any personalized advice. I love my dogs more than life, and I respect Ty's methods wholeheartedly. This is from Aaron. Well, first of all, Aaron, thank you. And I'm really glad that the methods that I'm teaching are starting to help your dogs. That's awesome. And number one, the first thing I have to say is I think you're spot on about treat training. Treats just don't inspire change because it doesn't challenge the dog to challenge his or her own boundaries. It only challenges the dog to go as far as he or she likes a treat. And, you know, for a lot of dogs, their fear main reasons I'm such an advocate for speaking out against it. Now again, I'm not against using a recommendation on treats like you found is just erroneous. It just doesn't work. So getting more into specific advice here, I always like to think in terms of mindset, meaning what is the dog's mindset or state of mind when it encounters the distraction or the object of its fear. In your dog's case, it's touching her with a frisbee or a balloon or what have you. In other dogs, it might be another dog or a person or a kid or a bicycle or whatever. But what is the state of mind? If I don't like the mindset, I need to change it, right? Because the dogs don't wake up one day reading Tony Robbins thinking, oh, I don't feel good, let me change my mindset. They don't do that. We have to be the catalyst for change. We have to be the Tony Robbins to our dogs. And so I often find that the dog's mind follows the body. And so if we allow the body to move in a hectic way, in a way that has no structure, the mind will follow. And so you mentioned the case of the balloons. The balloons come in and she's skittish and darts off here and darts off there. If we allow the body to do that, the mind is doing the exact same thing essentially. If we use that as an example, her mind is darting here and there and everywhere. And so like I say, because her body is allowed to dart around, she doesn't have to work on it. So what you were on the right track, because you mentioned you can coax her out and get her to lie down. But what I would do is get her to lie down further away from you. If she's lying down right next to you, she can borrow a lot of your strength, and she doesn't have to be she doesn't have to adapt and become as strong as she could become if she was required to do it more on her own. And so I would really, really work hard on your downstay. Probably have her on a leash and a training collar as you do this, and have her lie down. She's 10 feet away from you, and the balloons come in. As she gets up to book it, you block her, grab the leash, correct her back to her position, and say, no, you're going to stay here. And what we need to see, and actually this is a concept I just was talking yesterday with a trainer about, and I'll even put a link to it here to the podcast. Her adrenaline is up, and that's what's causing it. So she needs to do downstay until that adrenaline comes down. And so I call it chaos behavior. She's in a chaotic mindset, so she needs to do a downstay until that chaos abates. And so that might be 2 minutes, it might be 5, it might be an hour, whatever the case might be. She needs to learn how to start self-regulating that chaos and how to start shutting down that process. And so like I say, we've got to corral the body in order for the mind to start to calm down and for the mind to start to learn to adapt. Dogs, when they're stressed out, they only have 3 options available to them. They've got fight, flight, and avoidance. And so she's not going to fight the balloons. So what she chooses is flight, and so she runs away from them. Now flight, I always call that mental atrophy. It's like her brain is like getting weaker and weaker every time she flights. And so it's not like we have to like shove the balloons in her face, at least not in the beginning, but we can't let her run away from them either. So like I say, long downstays, the balloons come in. And then when we see that she reaches various levels of acceptance, okay, her body's calming down a little bit. Okay, the balloons will get a little bit closer. Okay, we can visibly see, her body relaxing. Okay, the balloons come a little bit closer until she can handle them. But like I say, you want a little bit of distance there so that she's learning to handle it on her own. Now, the second thing I wanted to mention might sound a little bit contradictory at first, but I also like to introduce stress objects while moving. So like I say, what I was talking about earlier is, the mind often follows the body. Well, in the case of the dog moving, even though the dog is moving, it can be a good situation to introduce something stressful. But, big caveat here, the dog has to be moving properly. The dog has to be moving in a structured fashion. So I want the dog right next to my side and walking properly. And so, what I would do, let's say it's the case of the Frisbee. I'd be walking along, the dog's walking perfectly, and I just hold the Frisbee, and we walk for a little while, and maybe she's like, oh, crud, there's a Frisbee, and she starts getting, I'm just going to keep going and let her adapt. I'm not going to... I'm going to let her gain some strength on her own, meaning I'm not going to coddle her. And it's okay, it's just a Frisbee. In fact, I probably won't even talk very much. I'll just walk, and, as she calms down, as she reaches that stage of calming down a little bit, she can't flight because she's on a leash. She's not going to fight the Frisbee.